Okay, we are going to move on to a new concept now, and that is called lofting. Where you would find a loft is if you go to standard primitives and go down to compound objects. The word loft is right there. And I guess the best way to explain it is by doing it, but really what we need is two things first. We need to have a path, which is going to be a line that we draw over here in our shapes area, and we're going to need to assign shapes to that path. Okay, now your path can be anything. It can be a straight line, it can be a curved line like this, or like I said, a straight line, or it could be a three-dimensional line like a helix, which is a spring, right? Hopefully you can see that. I'll select that down here. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to get rid of these shapes and let's start. So the concept is we need to have a path, and let's just keep it simple. Now the first place you click will be 0 along your path, meaning it's the start point. So I'm going to click here, just go up to the top, try and drag out a nice straight line, click, right click to get out of it. So there's a path. If I go to my perspective view, there's my path just floating through my home grid. And now I'm going to add a couple of shapes onto my home grid. I'm going to grab a rectangle, so I'm going to hold down Control, I'm going to draw out a square. And I'm going to grab a star shape. Okay? So, use your imaginations now. If we've got a path, and I were to assign this square to follow the path from the top to the bottom, or the bottom all the way to the top, and make a three-dimensional shape, what would you get? Rectangle, right. If you were to take this circle and have it follow the length of this path from the bottom to the top, and it would create a three-dimensional shape, what would you get? Cylinder, right. Okay, same thing with this star shape. You would get a star kind of shape from the bottom to the top, and it would be a solid object. But the question is, what if I start lofting or assigning a square to follow this, but I've got another shape at the top? So essentially what it's doing is changing shape halfway through. It starts as a square, and at this point here starts morphing into a circle. Can you imagine that? Well, what if we had three shapes along this path? It starts as a square, in the middle is this star shape, and then at the end is a circle. Maybe that's a little bit harder to visualize, right? But that's the idea. So it's almost like having a spine, where you've got the center of the spine and you're intersecting shapes to give it a three-dimensional volume. So let's try this. We're going to go to Compound Objects, Loft. So I've got my path selected, and I'm going to go grab a shape, and I'm going to select my square. Okay? So if you hit F3 and F4, take a look at what you've got. You've got a square that has been assigned to follow that path. Okay, now over here in your rollouts, if you open up your skin parameters, you can turn the skin off. Okay? You don't need to worry about these other shapes, the original ones that we left on the home grid, because they're really kind of outside of our loft right now. We're inside the loft. The important thing to see is this little yellow X. That little yellow X, if you take a look where it says path over here, is at the 0 point of your path. And the 0 point is the first point that you clicked when you created this line. If I would have clicked on the top and then come down to the bottom to create my line, my 0 point would have been up here. But we didn't. We clicked at the bottom. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I'm going to move this little yellow X to 100% along the way of my path, which is all the way up to the top. So now you see the little yellow X up at 100, and now I can say get another shape, and I'm going to introduce the circle. So I've got our skin turned off, right? So I don't see the three-dimensional form just yet. I'm just worried about the inner workings. So I've got a square assigned to the bottom, a circle assigned to the top, and what if I turn on my skin now? This is what I've got. A square that is morphing into a circle. You'll see that this is twisting a little bit. Now, I can fix this. So for example, if I go to my modify panel, there's the word loft. And if I open it up, I've got two things that we're working with, right? A shape and a path. I'm going to select a shape, and I'm going to select the circle at the top. Now I'm in shaded mode, right, where I can see the skin over top of my forms, and that's okay because I can work with it like that too. So I can grab my rotate tool, and I can rotate my circle at the top if I want to make sure that it wasn't twisting. I could select my square and do that. I could grab my scale tool and make my square bigger. Same with my circle. Okay? So you're inside the loft shape, and you're now editing the individual pieces that make up the loft. So I'm going to exit the loft by clicking at the top. It takes us back to this area here. I'm going to turn off my skin. I'm just going to deselect for a second. I'm just going to select my path. Okay. So my little yellow X is at the place that we left it last, which is 100% on the path. I'm going to just type in 50%. So now it's in the middle, and I'm going to go get another shape, and I'm going to get the star. So now I can see the star is in the middle, circles at the top, squares at the bottom. Okay, that might be a little bit hard to see, but hopefully you're able to follow along. Let's turn our skin back on. And now our star has been added into the middle. Now I have to do a little bit of an adjustment, so I'm going to open up my loft, grab a shape, just drag through it and you'll select it. Grab your rotate tool and just rotate it to straighten it out. It doesn't always shift or rotate, okay, but sometimes it does. So remember, at any time I can select any one of these three shapes and edit it. I can scale it. I could take this circle and move it down to make a tighter fluted neck. Okay, I can scale the bottom square to taper that in. Alright, so it's another way of modeling. Alright, so this is now part 1 of lofting. We're going to do a couple more exercises after this.